Friends, today is Sunday, the 28th of June. I'm in my study in the rectory. Archbishop is currently in the cathedral live streaming his 11 o'clock Mass. And I want to say a few words today about our first reading. You know, when I work on a homily, and I usually do that on Saturday, I need that little bit of pressure. When I work on a homily, I usually know the direction it's going to take and where the transitions will be and what I want to say and conclude with and so on. And so it's pretty well thought through before I begin. And the work then is a little bit easier. And I say usually because sometimes things change. Sometimes as I'm working through it, I'll have a little inspiration from the Holy Spirit, and the homily will take a kind of a turn. It'll make a change. It wasn't quite what I expected, and sometimes I leave it at that, and sometimes I don't. Well, today is one of those times in which my homily took a turn I wasn't expecting, but in the end I kind of liked it. Let me give a little bit of background first. That first reading from the second book of Kings in the Old Testament, second book of Kings, we're dealing with a prophet named Elisha. And Elisha was a kind of contemporary of the prophet Elijah, much more famous, better known. Elijah was the one who went into heaven with a fiery chariot. And before he did that, he took his mantle off and placed it onto Elisha, turning over his prophetic ministry to him, the prophet Elisha. And we're dealing with about the 9th century before Christ, early history in Israel. And the story today is about Elisha and the Shunammite woman. Shunammite. The prophet is wandering through Israel. He's a kind of wandering prophet from village to village. And he comes into a little village called Shunem. And there, a prominent woman, and her husband invite him to have a meal with them. And in the course of that meal, they come to know each other and enjoy each other. And so it was that every time that the prophet Elisha would come through Shunem, he would stop at this home and they would share a meal. And they enjoyed each other's company. Undoubtedly, the prophet had many stories to tell, and he would then inquire of the family that was hosting him and so on. And the family eventually decided that since the prophet came through their village, maybe we should make it easier for him and make a little room for him on the roof of our home, on the roof. Roofs were flat at the time. Homes were a single room, really, made from mud, dirt, and straw, and so on. And on the roof, flat roof, they made a little apartment and placed in it some simple things: a bed, a chair, a little table, and a lamp. And that was the prophet's room. And that's where my homily took a turn, an unexpected turn. I started to think of the prophet Elisha as kind of a local pastor, maybe a pastor of a couple of villages, well known to his people, and he came to know them, and through their hospitality he was able to eat and to share his life, little room to stay in occasionally, and so on. And as I thought about him as a pastor and his relationship with his people, I thought about priests and the relationship of priests to their parishioners. And that close relationship, the relationship that people have with the priest, occasionally inviting him over, the priest going over to people's homes, enjoying that hospitality, coming to know the families, telling stories, answering questions of theology and so on, just being a friend, a pastor in the village. And you know, I don't have an apartment somewhere in somebody's home, but I've always had a roof over my head. For my 43 years of priesthood, I've always had a roof. Ordained in 1977. I lived in rectories all these years. I really didn't come from much. I depended on whatever I found when I came to a rectory, but eventually came to know people and appreciated their hospitality. And of course, it's through their donations and contributions that I have anything at all myself, including, for example, a library behind me. I don't know if people really know, but where a priest's salary comes from. I suspect some people think it might come from the Archdiocese, but no, it comes from the collection basket that is passed around every Sunday. The support of the parish and the church, well, that's where our pay comes from as well. And thus everything I have comes from you. And I'm grateful for it. And this little story of Elisha and the Shunammite woman and her family reminded me of this, that close relationship of priest to people and people to priest. You know, the story, Elisha says that he'd like to repay this couple with something, so he asked his servant, well, what do you think they might like or need? And the servant immediately says, well, her husband is kind of a little long in the tooth, getting old, and she has no son. That's it. Elisha tells the woman, at this time next year, you will be fondling a baby boy in your lap. Now, I can't offer my parishioners a baby boy. In fact, if I did, I probably wouldn't receive any invitations to dinner at their home. But as it is, I give thanks for that relationship of priest and people, people and priest. A relationship that I think is mutually beneficial to all of us. And for all that I have, I say thank you, and for all I give and will give. I hope that is something that is helpful for you as well. Hold that thought. We'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, Monday, is the solemnity, let me get that out, of Saints Peter and St. Paul. Obviously a big feast for the church. We'll see you tomorrow.